And we're live. How y'all doing? I had a little, I was moving slow today and I had technical problems. I had to get stuff, fix things. So that's why I didn't do a morning show. But here we are. So, what the old crone said about what was right with what was wrong, right? And so the first time I saw the old crone, it was what was it, 1970-ish, 69, 70-ish, right? And, oh, oh, you guys ever use these? They are the bomb. Fisherman's Friends. I learned about these in Ireland. All my fishermen friends use these because they used to go out in the North Sea and always have coughs because they smoked. Anyway, I was the only guy amongst a whole town that just didn't smoke. My girlfriend at the time, she was the town doctor. She didn't smoke either. At least cigarettes. So, what the old crone said to me about what was right and what was wrong. And she didn't put it that way because she said they were irrelevant because it was judgment, and it's we're not about judgment. We're about to in every day and every way take the piece of the earth and make it stronger with and through the co-creation of love, you know. And so she was, another one of my great mentor teachers in that path from my grandma at birth to today. And Akasha, every I wake before I wake up, my last dreams usually are with Akasha K, who is my sensei on the other side. When I go to my sanctuary of my own choosing, my superconscious mind, at the place that is the level of ascension that I'm at, my teacher is there in state, always in state. And he is, or she is, I can't tell what gender my teacher is. Because if any of you have seen the movie Doctor Strange, when he meets his sensei, who um, you know, was, billions of years old, and you couldn't quite tell whether he was a she or an it. Had a bald head and a very flowing robes all the time, and a very almost floated across the floor, and went through time and space by just turning the doorknob of Sitchin's. So the old crone. So every day was like a lifetime. I probably spent 3 months there until the episode with the 3 pots and of tea and trying to take the animals in the convey down to the pub. And I showed you the picture of the pub. When I was showing you a couple of shots back of Ireland and Mick and his family and the friends I brought from New York. Anyway, that was the little neighborhood, and she lived above it, up in the clouds. It was like Mount Olympus. And I showed you the photographs of us, the road going up there, and it's like it looked like we were in the space shuttle. we were, as the road was going up, we're looking at the coastline, and you could see 300 miles of the coastline. You could see all of the Ring of Kerry, Skibbereen, Glendore, onto Galway, right? Take a look at those pictures. It's 3 or 4 YouTubes to the south of here. So anyway, tonight we're talking about, what's right with wrong, or wrong with right. And the bottom line, I have been having, I mean, last night was a good example. Our little chat was quite amazing. It was we were reaching new heights. We were you guys and me were becoming one, right? And that's what this is about. Because the powers that shouldn't be are losing their grip. They're hanging on by their fingernails. And if you go back and look at history, every point where empires fell, it was very messy. You know, back in the day of Lemuria and Atlantis, very messy. That was the last throes of the empire of our solar system. What is the Oort belt, where all the chunks of stone of asteroids are, was a planet that was right in the middle of our solar system. That was the bomb. Earth was kind of like a soggy snowball slash mud puddle. That's why we are mud puppets. We are mud puppets, not just ugly bags of water. We're mud puppets. Those the bags are muddy. So that whole cataclysm. I mean, the scenes from Star Wars. Our moon is the Death Star, right? That empire that was going on through that whole trilogy or multiple trilogies of Star Wars. Is it? And the guys who were making movies today, J.J. Abrams et al., are the next generation of the powers that, the puppets of the powers that shouldn't be. And they're not even the cabal, meaning everyone who you think's in power, the Rockefellers, the Illuminati, Rothschilds, whatever, they're just poster children, just like Donald Trump. I mean, we haven't, I don't know if we've ever had a true blue president, and usually every time one of those guys who gets put in there gets selected, not by the voters. And why do you think we have, this college that picks up? I mean, Hillary got the every other democracy, whoever gets the popular vote gets to win, right? Not here. We have this collective college or whatever they call that thing. And they put the guy in. So Donnie, he didn't, and he was put there, He didn't expect to win. That's why he did all this collusion. With no collusion. And moron, even if he should say, "Oh, I colluded," sure I did, because it's not against the law. What's against the law is like lying to Mueller, lying to the FBI, perjuring yourself, And every moron and his brother is perjuring himself because they can't help themselves. We have the best legislators money can buy. We have, the most corrupt. I mean, the whole Pizzagate. That's all true. Now, how it's spun one way or the other, not so, but all of those things of power go through lenses of ceremony. And the more inappropriate the power is, the more the corrupt the lens is. So the satanic cults, all of that stuff, you go to guys like David Wilcox, Corey Goode, right? Start with them, right? And their little whole, and Dr. Greer, and their whole thing of disclosure, right? Well, then you go to look at all those, go online and look at all the conferences they do, and see all the people who are on their panels. Those are the people you should go look at, because those people have some real experiences. And virtually everyone on this planet has been either abducted or a clone or a half breed or a hybrid or piece of Wonder Bread. It's beyond frigging belief. Explain the artist in the first person. Okay, glad you asked that. So, everything but love is an illusion, total, right? So, why, in the beginning, right? Everything is black. What is black? Black is the presence of every color there is, you know? Black is everything, right? White or light is just one frequency. And what that does, it gives this perspective of shadow, right? So, God, I hate using that word, but love's co-creation has been in existence forever. And the Big Bang, right? Bottom line is Big Bang, isn't like this Big Bang. Where did it come from? It came from another place. That it was already there. Anyway, once it happened, it didn't just start shooting crap this way into infinitum. It's all the beginning, the middle, the end, the alpha and omega. Right. So, our consciousness was given free will in that bang because I have a sense that the thing that kicked off that Big Bang was that love wanted something other than what it was um, to play with, to have a play friend, right? And so, bango, all of these particles and things and everything, all existence, everything, blah, 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 right? Happened at once. And um, love's co-creation was, hey, this is fun, this is good, blah, blah, blah. And as all these things were sparking up in the nanosecond of existence of the alpha and the omega, um, certain things occurred, and one was free will and consciousness. And, love's co-creation said, okay, I want to play with this. This is interesting. I'm going to play with this. So that's where linear time came, our experience, right? That was the sandbox that, the Garden of Eden we were stuck into, right? And we were given, these avatars to play with, God or love's co-creation. So everything was, just kumbaya, right? But, so in the Bible, what is the oldest book in the Bible? The oldest story is Job, right? You know, there is, and this is where I will use the word God. God's there, smoking a doob with Satan, his number one guy, right? And God saying, "Boy, hey, look at that! Look at that guy, Job. He's my man. He's always doing the right thing. All these other pinheads, not so much. And Satan goes, yeah, that's cool, but hey, of course he does the right thing. You gave him all this stuff. He's got this perfect life and love and money and cows and family. Start taking that shit away. Start making his life miserable. Then see what happens." So he starts doing that, right? And does Job curse God like everyone else is, his wife and everybody? No, he has faith. And he has faith in love's co-create. Not God the guy in the chair that's smoking a doob with Satan. That's part of the illusion. It doesn't exist. But co-creation. So Job is the first dude in the oldest of old books that we have that has faith in love's co-creation and doesn't give up. Just keeps creating. No matter what shit comes his way, he's there, right? And so back in the day, before we got, twisted up by the Anunnaki and turned into, a mud puppet, when we were still what Job was, your basic Neanderthal. Neanderthal, bigger head, bigger brain, bigger lung capacity, and lived in basic hard times, meaning those guys were living in the Ice Age, you know, and they were living. Us, we have been around only in the Goldilocks scene since Satan, broke the mold of, you know, living in Garden of Eden. So we had all. So why did our brethren Neanderthal scribble those things on the inside the cave? Because he was the artist in the first person. He was expressing how he felt through the consciousness and free will that he had in co-creation with love. That's what the artist in the first person. The artist in the first person is the savage. You know, when the Europeans came over here, there was like close to 200 million indigenous people living here, and they killed them all. You know, talking about genocide. You know, the Nazis were nothing compared to the Protestants and the Roman Catholics. You know what they did to Central America, where St. Louis is. There was a city larger than what St. Louis is now. Full of, they had roads and sewers and water lines and businesses, you name it, they had it, and they never had a war. They had more people than the number of people who are there now. Meaning, I as an archaeologist kind of dug around that place years ago, and we came up against things that were like, "Ooh, look at this," and it never hit the textbooks. You know, I always worked for people who wanted to know what they were above the powers that shouldn't be. That's who employed me. You know, and my job motif is I've never worked for anyone who they didn't need me more than I needed them. It's like right now. Look, I'm homeless. I'm having a great time. I don't need employment until the right employment comes my way. And until then, what am I doing? I am doing like what I did today and what I did yesterday and the day before that. I had a bunch of chores to take care of John, buy him food, buy him whatever, and take care of it and cook and listen to him and, be his friend. And, but in my goings on of doing, I'm working with a number of churches trying to work with the homeless people. What better person to help organize institutions like Goodwill, the United Way, the Mission, Salvation Army, Red Cross, to help homeless than a homeless guy, right? Who's a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist, And I can talk to homeless people. They talk to me because I'm dressed just like them. I smell a little better, but and I am empathetic. I listen. I don't tell them what fill this form, do this. I listen to them, ask them what they need, how they feel, and that's what we need to do. And again, that is what is the artist in the first person, So, explain artist in the first person. So, the best, like if you want to, like, quick, take a picture, the best picture of the artist in the first person is the indigenous person scribbling away the picture on the cave, right? And that's where Plato got his little treatise on the cave. Go read that one, where you're in a cave and, the real world is behind you and there's a cave opening, right? The light is coming in, projecting a shadow on the cave wall in front of you, and you think that's reality. You are so stuck. You just keep going, how do I pay my bills? Oh, I only want to be famous. Well, how do I get back with my ex? And you say that 3 or 4 things over and over again for the next 40 years, and you go nowhere. And that's Plato's treatise on the cave. All you have to do is turn around and look the other way and say, my God, look, that's what's going on out there. You go out there and get involved. Well, I've been trying, for the last, 2.5 years. She's like, I can't talk to those people. Why would I want to? How could I make money off them? I want to be a movie star. I want to go make. I've made 4 movies. Says the same thing over and over. And again, I say, J-Boy is just the canary in the coal mine. He is showing us exactly what our society is doing. Our society is already off the cliff, and yet it's talking about doing this, same. Oh, it's the terrorists. We have to blow them up, kill. We have already killed close to 3 million people in the Mideast. You know, the people in, the Taliban. Taliban was the only folks who ever got rid of heroin in Afghanistan. And that's one reason why we invaded them. They were like crimping our business plan. Dick Cheney sure felt that way. And and who were the Taliban? But the Mujahideen who we put there, right? It just goes on and on. It's the same freaking story. Pair of shoes, hoodie, winter. I mean, that is the righteous thing to do. And if all you have is, so I deal with the homeless people a lot. They're constantly, I don't smoke, so they have stopped asking me for cigarettes. But they, I always have my magic pocket, put my hand in there and I got $1 or $2 or some spare change and I give it to them. I do not have the hypocrisy. I'm not going to give you any money because you're going to buy booze or whatever. No, they need what they need when they need it. I give it to them. And in my car, I got I have a magic car too. So my car, I start, the photo books that buddy wanted. You keep showing us the same ones. Let's see some new pictures. Well, I'm homeless. I'm old, like I am not where my stuff is because my stuff is spread around the East Coast because I've the last 5 years or 4 years have been couch surfing. So I got stuff in people's basements and attics and garages and, all over the place. So, but Buddy wanted to see some other pictures. So I just dug deep into my car and bingo, I pulled out some more pictures, right? Same thing with, I need, I'm wearing like 5 coats at once. A couple of friends are trying to find me a really special. I have 2. Last winter, some friends gave me 2 really special coats. But when summer came around, they're under somebody's couch over God knows where. So, let's see. What do you guys have? Pebble in the palm. So him. Back. Yep. So whatever you can do in the moment, that's another thing that the artist in the first person is in the moment, not thinking about the past. Oh, I hate that person, blah, blah, they did this to me. Oh, people were so mean to me. Or, imagining something that doesn't exist. Oh, there are aliens after me. I mean, this whole alien abduction, this whole everything, this whole, Illuminati, yes, it is all true. But, what's right with wrong? This is also non-existent. And we, by our positive example, we are changing the freaking world. Just from our conversation last night, 2 things happened to me that were truly freaking amazing. And it's been happening quicker and quicker every day. So I'm like around and there's certain places I go where the people who own the restaurant know me and, the $12 meal, they go, how much money you got in your pocket, Al? And I give them like $3. So that's good enough, right? Or if I don't, they will say, don't worry about it and give me $10, And it's not like I go there expecting it, right? Because when I had the money, I paid for it. And back in the day when I was rich, I gave them a lot of stuff. And I paid everything forward. And I always do, because that way the universe is always... And I am at, I was talking about the other day, there is worship, obedience, and groveling. And that's how Christianity works. how Judaism works, how most monotheistic religions work. You have a God that is a drunk, abusive parental figure. Um, doesn't give a shit. Normally can't. You keep calling and he never answers the phone. You know, what kind of no? That's not love's co-creation. Love's co-creation is always there. So instead of worship, what we do with is co-create with love instead of worship. Instead of obedience, we serve the need of our all our relations to bring happiness to share with love's co-creation. And instead of groveling, we lead by example, right? So that's what we have been doing, right? And it really has been having an effect because, so I go around, I do all kinds of things. Like tomorrow I'm going to a couple of churches and I'm going to decorate them. And I've, got some of my friends. I have a lot of, I'm an artist, so I've been an artist in this community. I went to an art opening. I went with Jay Box, and I don't know if any of you saw the video he put up of his presence there. But anyway, I went to that, and a friend of mine I told him the story about the basement at the Artist Collective in New York, and they got the basement of this building for nothing because, you want that down there? So they did. They cleaned it off, made it really nice, put up walls and ceilings and got rid of the smell and put up lights, and they have great little studio. They have 5 or 6 studios where this collective of artists are, and they have a central core. That is their gallery. So J-Box said, oh, let's go. I drove. He was, doing what J-Box does. And you can, like I said, the video's there, maybe. I don't know if he took it down or something, whatever. Anyway, and I won't really comment on it. Actually, there is a little snippet because what happened was I went in there and I was thinking I was going to video J-Box while he was videoing whatever he was videoing. And what happened was there were about 30 or 40 artists that I had been really tight with 10 years ago here, right? And I got sick, and then I got involved in other things, and I was doing this and that, and I really wasn't. But I kind of came back, and it was like an old home week, right? And there was this nice couches, and people just kind of picked me up and because I was hobbling around a little bit more than I am now. I'm doing better. And everyone came and sat by me. It was like everyone was visiting Grandpa. Grandpa's still alive. I thought he was dead. And we talked about all the shows we did, all the fun things we did in the early O's, and how things have changed, and it's not like that anymore. And I kept saying, well, come on, look at this place. This is great. You guys are doing great, And again, that was like a little pebble, and these guys picked up and did this amazing feat. And they took it for granted because, they've been doing it for the last however many, 8, I think, years it took them to get it to that point. It was great, beautiful, amazing. So I was having this great, deja vu of the good old days of art in Roanoke. And there is a lot of art here, right? And it's just not like, Hollywood or New York or Paris, it's Roanoke, right? And that is the real deal, is that you have to step up to where you are. Oh, I want to be in L.A., or I want to be in New York, or I want to be in... No. Wherever you are is where you are, and that's where you should really step up. With the internet, you guys are all over the planet. We are co-creating all over the planet, not just here, but everywhere, right? Once I kind of got it in my head that, oh, you guys don't need to come to me. I'm coming to you. And it's just as good. And maybe this spring, summer, and fall at the Deep Green, you guys will have visualized it, seen it in your Akashic record, gone there in dream time, and go, yeah, I'm whatever it takes, I'm getting there, right? And I'll stay there as long as, and and yes, we're gonna do something. Otherwise, I'll do like I did this summer. Instead of doing 2 live chats a day, I did like 1.5 a week. But anyway, and that's why I'm doing so many now, because I got this amazing access to Wi-Fi and the internet. I'm going to do it because it'll be there. You guys can go back, because I look at these things. They're all different. They all have a different message. There's all deep. They're all coded. I mean, it'll take years, if not centuries, for people with super AI to chip away at what I'm laying down here. And the other side of the coin is, my XRATTED blogspot.com, that just 3/4 of one novel is enough of the keys to the kingdom to break through the codes that I'm laying down here, right? Mike, you asked me, so what is artist in the first person? I did my best right here to explain it to you. But if you go back and read that stuff, man, you will get a like 2x4 over the head. Now, you may have to read this stuff. And that's why I only put up 3/4 of one novel. You may have to read that stuff, 5, 6 times, or 2 or 3, depending on how it strikes you. But it's all there. The keys to the kingdom are there, and then you can start to deconstruct everything else. So, what happened today, that has been happening the last 2 weeks, is I keep bumping into people who look like, if you were to, prejudicially judge them, I'd say, oh, they're this or they're that, or across the board, they were having a conversation with me, just like you guys. And I didn't, I was just in some place, with my little notebook there and writing and reading and looking at things on my phone, and people will come over. Can I sit down and talk to you? Sure. And they start talking about what we've been talking about how time and space seems very strange, and how nothing seems real, and their dreams are telling them things they've never had before. And it's like little old ladies and guys, who used to be bus drivers and, have crumpled up hands, and they're talking about things like if they were, Richard Hoagland. So, there are loads of folks who you should kind of go look at. Uh, uh, Richard Dolan is a very interesting guy, and he was the guy who coined the phrase breakaway civilization, and he, very good historian, really looked at what was going on, was a scholar, and, he didn't want to be a scholastic. He was in universities, and he was starting to see all this stuff, and that the scholastic world was, don't look at that, don't look at that, don't, you want a career, boy? Well, don't look at that, And Joseph P. Farrell, Farrel, and he's the guy who did, the all the Bell books, all the books about the Nazis. But he's not about Nazis. I mean, that's what people think he is. But that's kind of a place he started. But he's got this, both those guys have the big picture historical sense, right? And what they're seeing is that for as far back as it goes, there has been a whole, and that's the guy who wrote The Wizard of Oz. The wizard was don't look at the man behind the curtain. And they have seen it, and they are picking out all the dots. And the two kind of cancer, pustules that are on our social conscious and our culture and our history is JFK's assassination and 9/11. In the most recent, I mean, you can go back to, Pearl Harbor, that was a false flag, World War II, World War One, Spanish-American War, Civil War, all of those were red flags, had nothing to do with what the story was advertised. And if you keep going back into all of the wars in Europe and Rome and Greece and all of that, none of that history, like Thucydides, the daddy of written history, You know, when they went from griots to, you know, like Sophocles, to you know, written history. Thucydides was the daddy of them. They said, so Thucydides, what is written history? He said, whatever the Romans pay me to write. That's why I never used, when I taught in universities, I never used a textbook. You know, I wanted these students to ferret the information out. You know, you got a library over there, you got an internet. Come on, you know. And so what I did was, you know, in my little syllabus, you know, I was doing research, and I wasn't really a scholastic, but I'd be at this school for, you know, 3 or 4 semesters. Powers that would be there would say, "Hey, listen, now we need somebody to teach intro, you know, environmental or psychology or anthropology or any of the things that I'm a psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist." You know, they said, "Can you do that?" And I said, "Sure, $100 a class, not a problem." You know, okay, so that means I'm gonna have 20 classes, $100 a pop. You know, I'm good with that. So I put on my syllabus, big letters. I guarantee you an A. Just show up. Right? Then smaller letters. No tests, no quizzes, no papers, no textbook. I guarantee you an A. Just show up. Smaller. If you miss more than 3 classes, you automatically fail. Even smaller. I mean, really, you gotta squint to look at this. It says, if you ask me during class time, is this going to be on the quiz? You immediately fail right there and then. So, with the big one of you know, and they look in the book of the oh wow, I guarantee you an A, just show up. You know, they'd have to give me an auditorium. I'd have like, you know, 500 kids there. And before drop ad, I would be down to 4. Because first thing I did was I go, okay, everyone stand up in your aisles, right? And count off to 7. You know, if there was like 500, I'd say 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know. And if you couldn't do that, I'd say, see you later. You know, there's the door, right? So that would cut out maybe, if I had 500 there, maybe 100 would go out the door, right? So I said, all the 1s over here, all the 2s over here, all the 3s over here, all the 4s over there, all the 5s. And then the ones that were, you know, if they couldn't make their pile, I would say, you know, when the guys were milling around, I would say, all those who can't find where you're supposed to be, go over here, right? So there'd be like, out of the now 400, there'd be maybe 20 of those, and in each group there was 20 or 30, right? Then I'd say, okay, here is what I want you guys to talk about in your little circle. And when every class, what we're going to have is you sit in a place where you can make a circle. If we're in this auditorium, kind of sit in a way that, right, you're kind of in a circle, and that you can just, you know, not have to kill yourself to look at each other. And talk about what the last class was, and what between this class and this class, and most of these classes are once a week, I want you to meet at the library, and I will have assigned study rooms for you guys. You go up there, and you will do the research I will be giving you. And each group, I will have, you know, books, you know, for you, right? You show your little ID card, they swipe it, they give you the books. You go read it. You can't take it out of the library. You got to kind of look at it there together. And I said, one of the things that will guarantee you A is that you all have to teach each other. And you have to do this research, not just the smartest guy working for himself. Fuck you guys. Oh, you got the A, you suck. No. You all have to be a team. This is a team effort. Right? So that's how I organize the class. And usually by the 2nd or 3rd class, almost half of the people who made it past the first or second class would quit because I don't like this. I have to work with other people, blah, 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 blah. Why should I do that? It's all about me. It's all about I'm the best. I did all this stuff in high school. It's all about me. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. I'm going to boo, 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 boo. It's about me, 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 me. And I'd say, good, see you later. And by the, end of drop ad, out of that 500 kids, I would have somewhere between 6 and 30 students. And they were so freaking jazzed because they were learning stuff they didn't even know existed. And not only that, I was sharpening with emery paper their little critical minds. And they didn't even know they had them, right? And then I would do what, the shamanic stuff that I'm doing with you guys, I would do it with them. And they were like, they would see different dimensions and stuff of that nature. It was like, whoa. So we're doing this here on the old Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And it is affecting all of you. There is a group of you who stick at this, but there's 220 or so who read this stuff and contact me on my email, and it's affecting a lot of people. Like, Mr. Ride said here, pet on the pond, saw him about an hour ago. Right. Let's see, what are your sizes, Al? Ooh. Sizes of what? Coats and clothes, I weigh 225 pounds, I'm 5'11" and 3/4. I got a big frame, but I am a third. Those pictures of me when I was really, I was like that big. I am now this big. So, like this shirt here, the shirt I'm wearing, I only wear the clothes I can find in garbage bags that are still here. And this is a medium, meaning I could not fit into a medium. Now, as you can see, it kind of rides up there. But, so, it's winter. So if you were, let's say, like the lady, my buddy at the Salvation Army, they get a lot of clothes for people. So she's looking for the perfect coat for me. And she goes, what size should I get? And I said, 3X. And she goes, you're not that big. I said, yeah, but I want to wear 2 sweaters, 2 coats, a hoodie, I'm like the Michelin Man. I got many layers. And that's, homeless guy, because I don't know how long I will stay here. Everything is moment to moment, and that's life. Now J-Bog said, "I'll never throw you out," but that's 26 times ago. I've kind of learned, and so when he, why are you here? That's when I go. So I need to have many layers because it is going to be wicked cold this winter. Yesterday, I was going from the restaurant that I was in, walking to my car, just 20 feet, and the wind was blowing, and it was like, and if I hadn't had like 5 layers on and gloves, and I kind of need some scarves. I don't know where my scarves have gone off to. And but I had I had 2 hoodies on, and I had a hat, that kind of one of those things that had a little hole there. I was warm enough, but man, I could feel it through all of that. And I have these great pants that are 3 layers. They are like skier's pants, but they're really for the thing you wear under your winter spacesuit if you're in. I got this from a buddy of mine who had gone to the Antarctic in the early O's, and the clothes that he wore to that thing was mind-boggling. It was like a spacesuit, and so he gave me a couple of pairs of these pants, and they're very light, they're very comfy, but they got 4 layers in them, and they keep you warm. And they have little things at the ends where it closes it off so no wind can go up there. So, nice, that's my size. Let's see. Yes, thanks you. Much better, no pain, good. Oh, okay. Nice shirt, right? Got it out. All these clothes I got out of dumpsters. You just throw them in a washer. They're great. And this is one of these space age. This thing has 3 little microfilm layers, right? And this thing is, it's really interesting that it's again a micro layered thing, but it actually generates heat. Like today, I was sitting in the sun talking to this guy, which I will get around to talking to you about. You know, I went to my cell. My phone screwed up, so I had to get some things for it so I could talk to you tonight. And the guy, you know, who looked like OG, you know, if I was to be prejudiced and judgmental, I would talk to this guy. But he goes, "Hey man," I go, "Hey man, I've been watching your Dreamy Dreamland." Really? You say, "Oh yeah, I'm a subscriber." Really? Because then he started to get into scalar, you know, realities. You know what? And this guy's a homeless black guy, you know, and he's in the phone place because his nephew works there, and that kid is he is like Albert Einstein, but again, he's from the hood. You know, he didn't go to college. He's just read books and books and books, and the old guy says, "Yeah, he turned me on to you." You know, so the 3 of us were talking about, you know, astrophysics on a level that, you know. And when I belonged to the U.S. Psychotronic Society and guys like Al Bielek and Preston Nichols and a few others, they didn't even come close to these 2 black guys. But most people who would look at them would, like, you know, get away from them. But these guys were mind-boggling, brilliant, and like, you know, loving kind of people. But they both spent a good chunk of their lives incarcerated. And not, you know, just in a jail, but in every other kind of way of incarceration. Right? And the kid, you know, his incarceration was school, you know. And I used to work in schools like that as a shrink. And the architects that build prisons and near, oh, I forget the neck of the woods, but it's right near Asheville. It's not in Asheville, but it's not quite in Buncombe County. It's the next county, right where Black Mountain is, and whatever county that is, the high school, the grammar school, middle school, high school, then jail for teenagers, whatever that's considered, then mental institution, and then the state jail, you know, maximum security, all on the same piece of property. And the bus comes in and goes around all of them before it goes to first, you know, grammar, middle school, and all done by the same architect, same building company, with this, and they're all this kind of clay brick, not red, but this kind of opaque tan, and all the windows in every building were the same. I mean, you couldn't get out of them. They were like glass block. I mean, the grammar school too, they had no windows that open. Everything's ventilated, so everyone had, in all of those, you know, when the kids in kindergarten would get something, it would go through the ventilator. It was like the ventilators were all the way up to, every building got sick. It was a mind-boggling experience. And I worked pretty much in all of them. And off to the backside of this property had been an estate that then in the 30s became a fondly home for, you know, kids and you know, who had no place to go, and basically they were incarcerated to a degree. And in that, it was the jail for the young, you know, between the ages of, they had kids in that jail that were 12 years old, you know. And where are you going to go once you're incarcerated at 12? You know? And the school you came from looked like the prison up there. I mean, that's where we're at. And that's where this young man was at. So he hadn't been incarcerated like his old OG, but he had been his whole life. by his class, by his color, by his age. And yet these guys were, right? So we were like talking, and I'm sitting in the sun, and this thing just gets toasty, and I'm like taking off every layer I have, and I'm down in the, and I'm like, going and I don't know, and we talked about some amazing things, right? And so he wanted to know about reality, what the Matrix was, and is it just recently, and I said, well, the Matrix has always been here. It was like when we left, Matrix was the Garden of Eden, and with every different adoration um, of empire of that Matrix, it changes. And right now, we are in a place of synthetic reality, right? And there is so the web pages I want you guys to go kind of take a look at. So is Richard Dolan's, right? And he has a radio show. He has a podcast. He has a website. All very good. And there's a book called Beyond UFOs, right? And it's run by some foundation. You go look Beyond UFOs. That's the book. The publisher is this foundation. Go look at that foundation. All the books they've published, all the conferences. Go look at all these, like Disclosure in the Desert, all these conferences, Go look at Howe, Linda Moulton Howe, and see all the conferences she goes to. Go on her webpage. I think it's Earth something. And, see all the things that she's into and all the conferences she goes to, and then go on their websites and see all the lectures and all the panel discussions they have, and see all the people on those, then go to their websites. This is where you're going to find some pretty mind-boggling information. Then you take none of that crap for point blank, but put it through your heart chakra. This is where you need to process everything, right here. Not, up here, that's for sure. This is just a Rolodex, right? And so, where is this? Solaris, Solaris, Blueurahan, and it's run by a woman, and she does these interviews that are people who've been abducted and all this kind of stuff, and people who are and who've been MK Ultra'd, and there's a thing called synthetic telepathy, and probably since the Civil War, they've been picking people up and scraping their DNA and and doing hybrids off them, and the hybrids have been, I've met a few, and back in the 80s it was unbelievable because these guys couldn't tie their shoelaces. They had zero kind of skills with humans, social skills. And J.J. Abrams, in his Fringe series on Fox, had a group of characters who were called the Observers. Everybody had a bald head, and they came from another dimension and just came here and watched. And all through history there were pictures, and they all wore gray suits, had these hats like 1950s advertisement guys' hats, and they would go and only eat meat, right? They would get gigantic roast beef sandwich, and they would take all the bread and shit off and dump like half a pound of black pepper on it and stuff it in their mouth, right? If you were in a restaurant, some guy doing that. And they all had these same plastic briefcases, and they all looked the same. Their faces were a little different, but they all kind of looked the same. And that is actually a crew that does exist. And it's these time-traveling, dimensionally, surfing, hybrids, right? And so they 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 don't quite fit in, right? And I met a bunch of them, and yet they are the ones taking over our freaking planet. You know, in Carpenter's movie, they live. That's these guys, but the guys in his movie were like slick used car salesmen, right? So, oh, anyway, so all of this stuff really does exist, but what's right is wrong and wrong is right, and what's important and what matters and how it's going to work out can only be um, manifested through the correct use of love's co-creation. You know, once we plug into that, we become the artist in the first person, and our whatever we're doing, that's our art, is the little pebble in the pond, and the waves go out. Right. So, I've been, in restaurants and I was talking to a guy pumping gas the other day, and it was, ridiculously cold, and I had all these layers on, and we were there for 40 minutes, and this was an old, like 70, 80 years old guy. He was a World War II veteran, or maybe Korean War veteran, and Vietnam War veteran, and he was a Marine, and we started talking, and he started to cry because he said, everything I was told was a lie, and now I'm about to die. I got cancer, I got this, I got, and all of these things, was out in the Pacific, and I got exposed to, they had me stand up, 6 miles after the atomic blast, and the radiation dust came over me, and then they hosed me off, and, now and all my children are kind of fucked up, and we just had this amazing conversation, right? And he was, he's, after about 40 minutes, we were both about to freeze to death. I said, why don't we get in one of each other's cars? And people are lined up behind us. We've already really pumped our gas. So we kind of drive over to, Bojangles and have a biscuit and coffee and talk for an hour. And I let him tell, vent and tell his story and everything and everything and everything. And I get to this point where he's like, what's the use? And then I start cracking jokes and doing things and making him feel better for another 20, 30, 40 minutes till he's at this place where I'm saying, you can be that pebble, buddy. You've had this experience. Every place from now on, when you're at the supermarket, next guy you talk at the gas station, when you talk to your friends at wherever you talk to your friends at, have the conversation we had. And he actually gives me a hug. He goes, I will. And that's been going on this whole week, pretty much because we have been doing some pretty amazing work here, right? So, what do you guys have to say? Linda Moulton Howe. Yep, that's the girl. Yeah, Project Camelot. Exactly. That's the one. Yep. Yep, that's the one. And that girl was almost scary because she was AI. She was, she was downloading amazingly fast and telling a horrific story without any real emotion. How she's, what happened to her as a child and raped and that's MK Ultra. They smash your ego like a mirror and just pick up parts and play with them until you are the puppet they want you to be, right? But if your higher consciousness, your superconscious mind is stronger than that, you can pull yourself out of it. Now, you may be damaged for this life, but the more you can pull out and connect with love's co-creation, that's what heals. And that girl, if it's the same one that you saw, Jane, I mean, she was basically scary. Her head, she didn't blink. She was like just downloading faster than you can actually listen to her. But, I got the ears to do that. And I could tell that what she was saying was, the guys like Al Bielek. Al Bielek definitely, I mean, I knew him for years. And he definitely was part of the Philadelphia experiment. and because I muscle tested him, and yeah, he was. And in our little lab crew, we would do stuff, and the synthetic consciousness. So out of that group, and Preston Nichols is a good example. Now that guy, he was brilliant. He was smart. I don't know if he's alive or dead, but he was bigger than I ever got, and he never lost the weight like I did. And he too was like that woman. He was AI. I mean, he had this mind that was like a computer, and he would just, when he would talk, and there were certain things that would break him out of that. And as you see, the more it's like editing, You guys want to know whether I'm telling the truth? Every time I kind of get into something and I'm kind of disconnected for a moment, kind of tells you, we were doing that last night. We were doing some pretty amazing harmonic stuff, and we got broken out a couple of times. Preston Nichols, that's the boy. And so we were in this very interesting little above top secret DARPA, we were in somebody's little think tank, and it was in Manhattan. It was in a really posh condo across the street from Lincoln Center, and our handler was a woman. I mean, like movie star gorgeous, porno star gorgeous, Albert Einstein type of brilliant. Her name, what was the, not Annie Oakley, but the other well-known female shooter who kind of always got in trouble. Whatever her name was. Well, that was her nom de plume. I never knew what her real name was, but she was called that. And she wore a buckskin, a miniskirt, a buckskin miniskirt where it's frayed, like from her belly button down to mid-calf. And she wore a vest and a kind of buckskin shirt that was put together with, things that you drawstring, and it was cut down to her belly button. So her dress was cut to her belly button, and her shirt was cut down to her belly button, and she was quite well endowed. So it was like, and here are all these guys who never dated a woman except me. I was kind of the dude, and that's why I was in that crew, because I was the guy who had a little more social skills, and I could talk to all of them when most of them couldn't talk. It's like the Big Bang Theory, and the tall guy who's the roommate of our boy who's dating the hot girl. Well, that guy was kind of like me, kind of had some social skills, right? And the rest of these guys were like the rest of those guys in the Big Bang thing. And yet they were stepped on seriously. I mean, they were abducted, they were scraped and probed, and you name it, right? Now, I've had two experiences where I lost time. That one that I told you last night about being with my mom, and another one, which I'll tell you at another time. But that's it. But I've been contacted a great deal. And I have a good sense of humor about it. So that's kind of why I was there. Meaning, I'm the guy with a perspective. I can see what's going on. If you're doing research on something, if you're trying to make something work. Meaning, when I was at in New Mexico, I want to say New Mexico, my specialty was power supplies. But, and everything's in a box, so you don't know what anybody else is doing. But if I'm making this little power supply and I'm given parameters to produce, I'm smart enough to know, well, we might be doing this, might be doing that. And the guys above 4 levels who were like where you couldn't see them, they would come and visit my little bench. Well, what are you doing today, Al? And we'd start talking, and we'd have a really interesting conversation. Never about exactly anything, but kind of about it. And that was another reason I was there. And because I would give more of a 411 on how to fit I had no idea what any of the other components, or even I kind of knew some of the people who were working on this, that, and the other thing. So I was everything. Whenever you make something, your personality goes into that. So when they would, crash, you know, devices from somewhere else, the real way to figure out how to back engineer it wasn't the hardware itself. You kind of had to figure out who the people who were using it. And that's what the guys from up here would come and talk to me about, more about personality dynamics of the technology, as I was always talking about that. And so that's one reason they kept me around for as long as they did, and kept giving me interesting things that I could play with. So that's where we kind of are right now. Um, my skill set is getting people to kind of come together to utilize their best characteristics, the best outcome through the mechanism of co-creation with love. So let's see what you guys has. Oh, it's on here about that. Yep, yep. I'll check back. Jane Hope. Let's see. Hello there, Mr. Ghost, Mr. Wooten. Tomorrow night. Friends took a minute to wake up. Yep. Always wake up. Yes. Thank you. Trying much better. Pain gone. Good. Nice shirt. Okay. Al Bielek, the man. Yes. Andrew Messenger said, Gettysburg Address. Yes, it's true. Let's go. Jane, what is BASAGIO? I always need to be reminded of things, and then I can jabber on about them. Beyond UFOs, yep, that's the book. Earth Files, yes, that's Linda's thing. Yep, Solaris, part of Camelot, yep. And everybody, take notes on all this stuff, because you should be, if you don't know what this is, you should go check it out for yourself. Well, that's what I love about the powers that shouldn't be. They're frigging morons. I mean, like I was telling you about the observers who, don't even know how to open a refrigerator or tie their shoes. That's these morons. Just because they have access to technology that's 2,000 years ahead of where we are, that gives them this false sense of confidence. Love trumps everything. So if you're coming from a place of love, nothing can hurt you. Yeah, what's the worst they can do? Kill you? Big deal. I've died 6 times. I know it's just slipping out of a slipper. And man, when I'm finally allowed to go home and rest, I've been told they're going to have a really nice lazy boy, right? And a good jacuzzi and everything else that I like a lot. And I'll enjoy it immensely, right? And then, I will have it going up to that much. So that's where I'll start the next little journey, right? Because that's what it's about. It's not about evolution. It's about ascension. So, I was chipped. Maybe I should tell the story of my second loss of time. Yeah. So, Jane, fill us in on Project Pegasus. Or anyone else, who's got it. Because I only know a little slice. And, you guys, when you remind me about things, then I can, be verbose. But, so I'll tell you the story. So, there's this town in Tennessee called Irwin. And it is, the biggest thing they got there is this company called United Nuclear that makes the little things that go into fuel rods for military reactors, mostly for the Navy. And So that town glows, and everyone gets, everyone, even the janitor of that plant makes 100,000. Everyone does very nice in that town. That town is looks very nice. Whereas the surrounding areas, everyone's starving to death, right? But they're doing pretty good, and pretty much around all of the national laboratories during the Manhattan Project, it was like a 200-mile ring of or even larger, maybe 600 miles, where they didn't put everything in, Oak Ridge or in Hannaford, but all the towns around, and that's part of politics. Yeah, the kid going back in time. Yep, yep, I saw that. And that's a bit of the Mandela effect. And so, um, like Asheville had some pretty weird shit on the Manhattan Project. So, and politically, that's how um, the military-industrial complex, like the F-35 is a great example. That, some aircraft are like Sophia Loren, others are a limit. The F-35 is a total limit. Each copy is like $500 million and it can't even fly, and the cost of maintenance is beyond belief. Same with the B-1. And whereas B-2, whereas the B-1, the supersonic bomber back in the day from Jimmy Carter, does a great job. F-22 Raptor, they only built X, and then they broke the jigs. I mean, they had to mass produce that sucker. The big mistake back in the 60s was they designed the F-15 and the F-16, and there was this colonel who was like, fuck all this other crazy shit. I'm going to make two of the best aircrafts ever made, and I'm going to make sure they're mass produced. So we will win the next war, right? That's what the Russians do. We have the highest, amazing, complicated technology. They build all the I can't pronounce it, SU, given a number of aircraft. They're not as sophisticated as ours, but they're built like a sledgehammer. They're a tank. They get more, so they spend a tenth of what we spent on. Our defense department budget is more on weapons than the rest of the world does, right? And, the day before 9/11, Rumsfeld had a news conference. Well, we just kind of seen, because it was about to come out in the Wall Street Journal, that the U.S. Defense Department in 1 year lost $2.5 trillion. Wonder where that went. And Rummy goes, and we're right on it. We got our best people on it. And you know where they put their best people? They put their best people in the ring of the Pentagon that got hit by the plane. So all the boxes of all the floppy disks and all the tapes and all the files of where that money, all those different programs, and the 130 people who knew what was going on, the bean counters, all died that day. Just like Building 7 going down, that's where all of the stuff about Prescott Bush and the Bush family and all of the different families within that banking cabal that bankrolled the Nazis and brought them back to the United States through Operation Paperclip, and basically totally trashed the world through the United States. And it has been that way since, Chris got here. So, it's the same old same. And everyone's kind of waking up to it. And so we have to really work overtime for the next 40 days and 40 nights, co-creating with love, being the artist in the first person, because the cadre here, gang, and the other cadres that are connected to this cadre, is like this web. It's not just me or you or a handful of us. No, it's this web, our little pebble of the vibrations. I mean, because people are just showing up like in supermarkets and restaurants and gas pumps and in the, stores. And I'm having these amazingly long intense, amazingly sophisticated, meaning any of the politicians, any of the people you see on MSNBC, CNN, any of those morons wouldn't even know what we're talking about, or the rest of these people who are just common folk, right? And if you look at them, you would think they were this or that, meaning there are a lot. One thing on why I came to Roanoke is the microcosm of America. There's a slice of every pie. Every political group, every racial group, every economic group, every religious group, you name it, they're all here. And the last 20 years, I've been, peeking in there and talking to them and listening to them and getting to be accepted so I can just go. I mean, I haven't been here since May 1st, and I came back October 20th, 20 something, second week of October. The 2 days after the second Wednesday of October, I came back here, right? And J-Box, he wanted to go see his kids, so he wanted me to take care of his cats. So I stayed here for those 3 weeks because he was trying to stand up. And I said, man, you need to go and show the commitment of you, the dad. You are, you're constantly talking about how much you love them and da-da-da. Well, go to them. Be with them, I told him about a story of a friend of mine that, he was married, had kids, da-da-da. He was a musician, relatively famous. He would go, he made a pretty good living. And because of that and he just couldn't help himself. He strayed too many times. His wife threw him out. So she said, forget it, divorce. They made their agreements. She wasn't that bad. She didn't strangle him, but, he paid the bills for her, and she lived. First, she lived like 1,000 miles from where he was, right? And whenever, and he would he had an RV, and he would go to his gigs in the RV. He didn't have a gigantic entourage. And so when he had a week or two where he wasn't having a gig or cutting a record or doing something, he would drive to the town that his wife was and park the RV across the street from their house, right? Which was just the X amount of feet that the legal document said he had to stay away from his old lady. He never hurt her, never did anything. I can't take it anymore. So his kids still loved him. And so he wanted to show his kids how much he loved them. So every time he had a free week or so, he'd park that RV and they get off the bus. They would go and stay with him for a few hours, do homework. He knew what they liked to eat. He would make them stuff. And she wasn't the greatest cook. So, she let him feed him. So, and it kind of grew into that. And when she got mad, she would move further away to the point where she moved to Europe. And he started having gigs in Europe. So, and he got himself an RV in Europe and would do the same thing. And what he would first do, like I said, he was relatively well known. So he would show up and J-Box, when I was telling him that I'm trying to do this thing where I'm getting abandoned, what I did in New York, get abandoned buildings, have the homeless people fix it up, get it up to code. They own it, right? And not keep them, stuck as homeless people. You want to get people out of being homeless, you get them a home. Then they get a job. Then they stop doing whatever bad they're doing, and then they move forward with their life. But if you keep them stuck in the mission or this, they're going to be that way and doing bad things until they die, right? So anyway, I told them that I went and talked to a bunch of cops because they are the defunct or de facto. So we don't have social workers anymore, who listen to the people who have problems, just bureaucrats who push paper, right? And so I said, well, yeah, I'm trying to get the cops and the mission and the Salvation Army and about 4 other groups that are actually doing something together where we will go, because the mission owns, 20, 30 abandoned buildings right in their neighborhood where the homeless are. So if we could just fix one house at a time, and it's perfect because, right now it's winter, they could work on it, but go back and sleep in the mission. Back in the day when I did it in New York, we slept in the freaking frozen buildings that we were trying to renovate. Anyway, so this one, and I was telling J Box about, what do you do all day? I'm doing, telling, well, you're just doing what you're just having, Well, he's right. I'm having too much fun, normally, But you get a job. Well, I mean, hopefully. I mean, I don't have a job with these guys because of two reasons. Um, I would not identify with any of these different church groups or this group or that group or this organization or that nonprofit or the police or any of that, but I can work with all of them and make them all, no, well, get them, not make, but get them to all work together where we accomplish something pretty amazing. And that's what I do. And often, I was pretty good at getting grants and writing this and doing that and doing research and blah 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 and that, but I was always a consultant. I never had the quote unquote job, which gave me the freedom to do things that the people who needed me more than I needed them, um, it gave me the freedom to do what I needed to do for them, and they knew that, so that's why I was put. But after I got sick and I came back from it, it's, the universe, I guess, says, well, things have really changed a lot in those 5 years, Al. So it's like when the phone kind of goes out and I have to, like, get back there and then have it reconnect. It's like getting me reconnected. But it's kind of keeping me alive, keeping me safe, keeping me out of harm's way. Not that it's easy. Maybe I need the kind of friction that this thing is, my lifestyle at this moment is doing. Let's see. You look different today. You lost weight. Yeah, I'm always losing weight. I am on the what is known as the Auschwitz diet. But today, right, I spent the last $200 I had to buy us food because we were running out of it, right? And you know what I mean? And so, I don't snack. I have like a bowl of oatmeal in the beginning. Maybe 1 or 2 days a week, I make myself an omelet because I like omelets, or I get one at the restaurant. Um, and I used to eat 20,000 calories a day, and now I eat about maybe 800. That's really all you need, So, and the other thing, I'm just wearing this thermal shirt instead of like 4 hoodies. That's another reason this is me. This is my real. This is like, see how thin that shirt is. That shirt, and then it's me. Whereas the other nights I had hoodies and I had coats and jackets, and the other couple of nights it was pretty cold, like -8 C. And tonight it's 35 to 40, so I don't need 5 coats. You're eating good, exactly. I'm eating vegetable. I'm eating everything, but not a lot of anything, right? And that's what we were designed to be, grazers. And most of my grazing. And the other thing about my diet, my body has got to a place where if I eat the shit I shouldn't eat, I don't get heartburn, but I kind of belch and I fart and I don't sleep that well. So if I don't eat it, I stop eating around 6 and I go to bed after I finish this 10, 11 o'clock. And then I sleep great, 10 hours, But if I were to, let's say, eat something an hour and a half before, especially if it was a cookie or something like that, I'd wake up in an hour like, blah, blah, not throwing up, but belching. And you can't sleep when you're belching. Anyway, so my body is, like I told a friend of mine the other day that I have instantaneous karma. Everything about me, right now. And back in the day when I worked in the corporate world for 10 years for the desperate lawyers, not so much. And that's what opulence and hedonism can do for you. Push the karma and the outcome back a bit. So Breakfast like a king. Yes. Dine like a pauper. Exactly. Anyway, so like if I'm in the supermarket and the lady gives me an extra nickel, I can't go, ooh, I got an extra nickel. I got to give it back because if I go out into the parking lot, someone will back up into me and kill me or make it a bad day. So I have like this instant freaking taneous, but it wouldn't kill me. It would just give me a bad day because I'm always protected from death. And pretty much an amazing. I mean, I drove a car off a 1,200-foot cliff, and when everything stopped crashing and smashing and bashing, I was sitting on the ground, and it was a Ford Econoline van. And I don't know if you've ever been in one of those, but in the 60s and 70s, they had these bucket seats, and they were on a metal box that was welded to the floor of the van box, seat on that, right? And you kind of sat there, and the belt was across on the not up to the vehicle, but right. And when I came to final rest, and the dust cleared, and all there was silence. It wasn't like pieces of aluminum falling out of the sky. I had the steering wheel in my hand, and I was sitting in that bucket seat, and I was strapped into it, but the vehicle was gone. And I'm like, I find the buckle, and zing, and I'm like, blood, anything, and bones, Now I was black, there was no mirror, but I was black and blue all over my body. And I started hearing this coughing sound, and I looked up, and the guy was in the vehicle, whose vehicle it was in a tree. And I said, are you okay, man? He goes, I don't know. And then the branch broke, and he fell about 20 on top of me. And luckily, I had unbuckled myself, because if I hadn't, he probably would have hurt me, but we kind of fell out. And then we crawled up the cliff. We were on the road, and he had one cigarette that was broken 3 times, and he was like this, trying to light it with his Bic lighter, and then he looked at it, he broke a little pit off and stuck that in the mouth and kind of lit it, and he's smoking a little chunk, and he's like, I know this ain't your fault. I know I asked you to drive the car. I know, but I hate you. I said, what? Well, this is totally fucks up my plan, because he totally fucked up his plan. But we both survived. I was like amazed, and I was looking around for my dog. Where'd Frank go? Where's Frank? And looking around, we're up there, we're beat up, the car is off the cliff, it went through the guardrail. The vehicle that we were towing went through this big metal fence and down, into was sticking into a mud pit, and we're on a New Mexico County road out in the middle of nowhere, at least 100 miles to the closest little town. And we're sitting there, and we've been sitting there, I don't know, 5 minutes, and it's getting colder, and the night, the sun's going down, and it's starting to snow again. And this police, state trooper went flying by us with the, siren and the lights, flew right by us, and then, hit the brakes about 100 yards from us and backed up, and looked out the window, rolled down the window, looked out, you boys okay? And we're going, and it's like, war zone, all the fences are smashed, this truck is like in the mud pit, and, metal bits and stuff all over the place. It looked like Roswell. And he gets out, and he comes to us, and he takes the little bit of a cigarette out of my friend's mouth, and puts he goes, you don't mind Cools? And he goes, Cool, give me a Cool, please. And people are really addicted to Cools and smoke them. And he looks at me, you want to sit? I said, no, I'm just trying to breathe. He goes, that's a good idea. So anyway, he gets in the back of his car, and this guy's pretty smart. He gets 2 blankets and wraps us in a blanket, because he knows we're probably in frigging shock. And so he goes, just breathe, guys. He goes, anything hurt? How many fingers do I have left? and he's doing all the right things. And he realizes that God has been watching out for us. My archangel took care of both of us. Um, because he looks down and it's just the disintegrated van down this cliff, and goes over and looks at the truck, and it's like, and it was a big army truck, a 2-ton, one of those big army trucks, and we were towing that. Anyway, so he goes, "Can you boys stand?" And he helps us one at a time up and kind of puts our hands on the car, not to like pat us down, just so we don't fall over. And he goes, "I'm going to open the door. You boys can get in. And do you live nearby here?" And the guy goes, "Yes, my farm is just." "Oh, you live in the Eldridge's old place. Oh, you're that guy." And he's being this nicest, really. I mean, and when people go, "I hate cops," no, they're very nice people, And you put them in the right state of mind, like they always want to help. We were not a threat to this guy. He was being, the Good Samaritan plus plus plus. So he gets us in the car, and I go, "Officer, how did you even know to come up here to look for us?" And he goes, "Well, I was down on Highway 18 over there going into whatever little town he was going into." And he said, it was this big tan dog with this ridge on his back. And he looked like he had this kind of haircut where it sticks straight up there. Anyway, he was a ridgeback. That was my dog, Frank. And he said, "I was doing about 65, and that dog passed me." And I pulled off the side of the road, and within a minute he was invisible, and he was just dust. And I looked back from where he came from, and I said, "Well, that can only be County Road 42, so something really bad must have happened there." And he was right. That was my dog, Frank. Frank was sitting right next to me when we went off the cliff, and everything slowed down, and I kind of looked over at Frank, and Frank looked over at me. We both said, "Oh boy, this is not going to be good." And it was full of electric, all kinds of our tools and stuff. This was our employer's truck, and we're flying through the air, and we're looking through the windshield. We see 1,200 feet down. It's like we're going, "Uh-oh, this ain't good." And all of a sudden, as we're doing this, there's an outcrop, and the Ford Econoline front part that's very flat comes like this. And we stop, right? And my cohort is like crying and screaming and gnashing of teeth, and Frank and I are being really quiet, and we both kind of turn our head to him, and I say, "Stop it. If we can just get out of these seats without..." And the window when we went, the window popped right out, right? And I said, "Just shut up. Let's try and get out of this thing before this thing goes off the cliff," because we're like standing like this, just on the front part of the Econoline, and it's wanting to do this. And more of these boxes are like falling down around us and kind of hitting the top, and like, it'd be nice if we had gone this way and leaned against the back of the cliff, but we were like this, and we're going over, and we start tumbling front, back, crash, 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 not sideways, but long ways. And all the crap, every time we would go, toolbox, this box, a hydraulic, this came zipping by us because nothing was attached back there. And Frank, the second time we went over, he had like gone up. It's like the vomit comment. He was like weightless, kind of going above my head. And then we smashed on the ground, and he went out right out the no longer windshield. And about 4 or 5 toolboxes came zipping by my head. And we're right behind Frank. And Frank did this like a keto move of like flipping around. It was like something out of the Matrix. You know, these boxes would have like KO'd him for good, and he was like, whoa, whoa, and everything's slowing down, and I'm watching Frank, you know, being the guy in Mobius in the tricks, and Frank has himself enough to go that way, and all the boxes and crap is going this way, and he's flipping through the air, and he hits the ground running, and runs down the, you know, he runs down the cliff, and we're still tumbling and smashing. And at the last fifth time that I went around, I kind of blacked out, and that was good. And pretty much half the stuff that would have killed me flying by me had already zipped out of the van. And for the rest of the crashing and the smashing, I was kind of just out of it. And so the cop said, yeah, I saw this dog going faster than I was. I was doing 65, and something really bad had to be the other way, so I just turned around and came up the road as fast as I could. And then I saw you boys, and I saw the, you know, pile of broken everything along the highway, and I, you know, jammed on the brakes, and here we are. I'm taking you home. Are you still okay? And he brings us home, and he goes, boys, you stay in the car. He goes to my friend, is there anyone in the house? And he goes, yes, my wife and my kid. He goes, I thought so. Let me go talk to her first. Because he really kind of got the picture of this not only was a terrible accident, but my God, we survived, but it was one of these linchpins of whether this family was going to make it economically or be thrown, you know, into the junk pit. And he goes out there, and she comes out and grabs him, and you know, and basically he gave her the 411 what it was and what this guy needed, da 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 da. And so I'm still in the car while my friend is going into his house. And the policeman, and I was too tired, too in shock to even move, and you know, and he had gave me a couple bottles, and I'm just drinking water because I know I should. And he goes, I'm going to take you to the hospital and have you checked out, and then I'm going to take you to my house and put you in my guest bedroom. I said, really? And he goes, yes. He said, you don't need to be alone. You don't need to, you know, and you don't need to be in that house because they're going to blame you for everything. And I know it's not your fault because we were going up this hill, and I was towing a you know, the tunnel line had a big motor, but light. We were, you know, pulling a gigantic heavy thing behind us. We hit a patch of ice, and the trucks just went their separate ways. So he took me home and you know, took care of me, and that was a Saturday, and I stayed there Sunday, and he brought me back to where I lived Sunday evening, and I stayed, you know, I stayed in New Mexico another 18 months and was stayed with a good friend. He actually died in a car crash. Not so much he was in the car that crashed, but he had responded to a car crash. He was on, I think, 40, and it was a cold, snowy evening, pretty dark, and he was putting out flares. Somebody was just coming way too fast and just whacked him into another dimension. That was the end of him. And luckily, he didn't have family or, you know, because he had survived Vietnam and had seen some stuff, and he was amazed that he was still alive. He said, you know, there's 4 or 5 times that, you know, I really should have been dead. You know, he told stories of, you know, they were in firefights, and they were in, you know, they quickly dig these little trenches so, you know, they get below the machine gun bullets, and then the VC started just dropping mortars on him, and a mortar blew, you know, he was in this little foxhole with 3 of his buddies, and a mortar hit right off this, you know, on the other side of their little foxhole, and concussion threw him out, right? And then down the hill and behind something, and then the next mortar went right into that, and he got up just to see his friends turned into blood dust, and there was nothing left of them, just, you know, rain of red everywhere. And he was standing right in the middle of this field, and his platoon of, I don't know, 20, 30 guys, only 6 survived. The rest were all, turned into a rain of blood. And he stood there and watched this happen. And he broke both his eardrums, but that was it. So, and a couple other things like that. So he was like, knew he was on borrowed time. Yep, and that's life. Good, bad, and that's the title of this whole thing. Oh, Chrone, what's good, what's bad? It's good, bad, it's bad, good. And she and I had a number. I mean, she did all the talking and not me. I just listened and took notes and, put it up here. But we talked about this whole illusion thing. I had all my other great teachers give me the imprints of it, taught me Plato's treatises, all of them, and all his stories, and all the other Greek, Socrates, and all the playwrights and the mathematicians, everybody, and all of their work was basically codes to the big picture, and everything was geometry, it was just keys. And now these guys showed me all of that, but either they didn't have it up to show me the whole story like she did, or they wanted me to figure it out for myself, and a little bit of both, probably. And so that's where we are now, because the powers that shouldn't be really want to basically turn the human race into one gigantic red rain, right? I mean, all the crap that's going on environmentally, the hurricanes, the fires, the snow apocalypse, the ice age that's going to be this winter, and but when you look at the statistics, there's less violence, less, there are more people. What's very interesting, I was just looking at CDC's statistics. I mean, everything's on the internet. I kind of, that's what my little homework is, always looking at these trends. This is the first time since World War One that the age of when we're going to die, it's not going up, it's not going up, it is starting to go down. And for kids born in the millennial crew, statistically, they aren't going to make it. They're going to be mostly dying between 48 and 62. My age, my 50, we die somewhere around 72 to 82 or maybe 100, depending on your gene pool. My grandma died at 100, my mom died at 103, my dad died at 98. So, odds are, I don't smoke, right? So, but for the population at large, and more people are dying from opiate addiction than guns and car accidents put together. And that opiate addiction comes from big pharma, And they're still selling that shit. They still have pill mills in Tennessee, in all the, opiate states. There's the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Appalachian. And the Appalachian states, West Virginia, Tennessee, parts of Virginia, parts of Ohio, parts of Pennsylvania, because those mountains kind of go all the way up to New York into Canada. So all along that mountain ridge, no one's doing anything about it. And there are plenty of, tried and true. We've been through this many, many times. During the Vietnam, the heroin addiction, the methadone addiction. We've been there, done that. And to put people on methadone, no. That's the worst addiction you can be on. But there is acupuncture in your ear. You put a earring there. There are other acupuncture points. You have people, I used to, at the VA, You know, I was the freak. I was allowed to do because my boss was the guy who was, I was his protege, and he ran the whole friggin' hospital. He was a colonel. He was a surgeon. He was the head honcho, and I had my little section where I would take people who no one cared too much about, but were addicted or this or that, and I pasted them back together. And that's where I learned to be a healer. You know, and I still have those skills. I can still do it. So there are a number of herbal remedies. Again, that acupuncture point in your ear, and there are a whole bunch of other ones that you do. And then there are exercises. And then there, what you really need, why do people take drugs, is that there's a hole in their love, right? So you got to help them fix that. That's the one thing that you can't do with a drug or what. And Narcan, everyone, if you're a junkie, you should have Narcan rather than, fentanyl opiate, And most states treat Narcan like it was, heroin. But no, it keeps, keeps you from ODing and keeps you off, if you take the right amount, it keeps you from jonesing for the opiate. So, anyway. And also, if we legalize cannabis sativa, marijuana, people could just smoke a joint and not be as anxious. They wouldn't be shooting heroin. And this is what they do in Switzerland. This is what they do in Portugal. This is what they do in Sweden, Ireland. And they do it big time. And they also do it in England and Germany and France and Italy, not as much. But they still deal with it much better than we do. So, any other questions? We're here, yeah, KY. 1 hour, 47 minutes into it. So you guys up for a little visualizing meditation? So I like this new look, and not only am I slim and trim, but I put my phone on a tripod that J-Box gave me. He's, J-Box, his internal self is a sweet, sweet person. But his neuroses and what's been done to him is a whole nother thing. And he, I keep saying, listen, buddy, because he really, is an amazing actor, musician. You've seen his stuff, right? But when he tries to, do it all together, it's, ooh, whoa. A lot of people, whoa. When he's like, look at me, But what he, I live around him, so I see the show 24/7. What he is really good at, he actually sings quite well, and he has this voice in him. So any of you have seen Jimmy, you can tell that's a totally different voice. So he does that. He's got hundreds of voices inside of him that he can speak. Now, I had a friend, I was telling him a story. I lived in Asheville. I'll show you the pictures of Asheville. I lived there, from 91, late 91, to, I left there in 98, 99. And I came here. And so I was involved in Asheville, 91 to 96, or 91 to 98, Asheville was the best because it stuck in amber. They hadn't paid off their 1929 depression debt. Asheville used to be the Paris of the South. All the artists, all the painters, they went there. It was up in the mountains, summertime. It was like amazing. And in the Roaring 20s, the Astors, the Biltmores, had their big house, so lots of money there. So they spent, in today's dollars, about $6 billion to make Asheville the city. Before it was like this mountainy town that was inconvenient. You couldn't get there from here. So they basically, and in New York, what they were putting in the subways around this time, and in other cities, and they didn't dig tunnels. What they would do is dig a trench, put up pour concrete on top, and that would be the street level, and the subways would be in there. And it was at that time a lot easier. Now, old cities, you can't do that. There's all kinds of pipes and people and things. And Second Avenue is a great example. You know, they started digging the Second Avenue subway in '57, and they only finished 2 miles of it in 2014. So anyway, that's what they did to Asheville. So they leveled it off, and because Asheville was like this sawtooth mountain city, and so they had no running water. They had no there was sewage running in the streets, just like your basic 1890s, boomtown, and that's kind of what Asheville was. But in 1929, because all these money gentry people said, "Oh, we can't have this," they basically did that to downtown Asheville. Put up steel, poured concrete, and they put a roof over what had been the city like that, right? And then they built buildings on top of it, and Hayward Street and Wall Street, and basically copied Boston, New York City, and San Francisco, because all the streets are named after those three cities, like Wall Street and Lexington Avenue and things like that. So that was the Asheville that they built, and they put in water and sewer, and they built a tunnel through this mountain because one half of the city was on side, and when that's something they couldn't, so they built a tunnel through it, and they built the downtown city plaza, courthouse, city hall, a few other buildings, and built the basic what Asheville was going to be, this kind of circular city, kind of a little bit like Charlottesville. Not Charlottesville, Charlotte, because Charlotte is a ringed city, right? So anyway, that was Asheville. And then the Depression came, and they didn't have money. They sold bonds, nobody bought them. Depression came, they couldn't pay anybody off, right? So it took until 1929 to 1996 to pay off their Depression debt. Now the guy who put in the sewer and water lines, well, he paid for everything. He didn't borrow money like the other guys did. He did it because he wanted to get the full ching himself. And then they weren't going to pay him anything. So he was pissed. So he burnt the blueprints of the city of Asheville, where everything was. The water lines, the sewer lines, all the other stuff that was down there. So the city of Asheville has no idea where any of that shit is, right? So they had no money, so they did virtually no repair of anything because they didn't know where anything was. And most of the lines were lead and terracotta. So you think Flint had bad water? Wow. Asheville, I used to be on the water board. What happened was, so they couldn't do anything about it. So the sewer and drinking water became one. And so people were drinking their sewage. So the bottom line was, if all the city could do, and the county and the state could do, was add more and more chlorine and ammonia to the water to kill the bugs. All they did was kill the weak bugs and make the stronger bugs get stronger. So today, if you have a compromised immune system, do not drink any water in Asheville. Now, there is no, again, I keep telling people, don't believe anything I tell you, right? Don't take, but Asheville kills, murders, destroys 30,000 human beings a year by them just drinking their water. And most of those people are tourists, because they don't put this on Asheville's little, oh, it's a beautiful, Paris in the sun, oh, blah, blah, right? No, they don't put that. They don't advertise this. Once I was trying to bring this up to the water board, and they said, hey, shh, 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 we like you. Shut up. Okay. So I didn't really talk about it until 20-some years later. Anyway, the other amazing thing is Asheville is in a bowl, right? And two major highways go right through it. Interstate 40, which is the largest east-west highway in the United States, and Interstate 26, which goes from Charlotte all the way up to Johnson City, Tennessee, which hits 81. Um, those are two of the top five most. The only roads that are have more traffic is Interstate 10 in California and 95 from Boston, but really in Miami. Miami has 19, 95 has 19 lanes. I've never seen that, even around DC. But anyway, so Asheville has worse smog, worse car related air um, than anywhere in the world, worse than China. It's 24/7 because it has literally, maybe even more now, but when I was there and looked at the statistics on a almost daily, they had 1 million cars driving through that city in 1996. That's the last time I can like swear on the data because I was being paid to again take a look at all this stuff. I was working for all the different elements of the powers that shouldn't be. And so I had a great time, right? And I had the keys to the place. Like I was doing a study of the water and the this, and this one guy, old guy, said, "Took me over. There's where Hayward Street is, and the Hayward Hotel is. There's a road that goes down to Lexington, and that's the only place. That was the steepest part where they couldn't level it off by putting steel in. And this old guy who worked for the the city when it was a public utility. He had all these keys in his house to everything, like Grandpa Stoll did, and he and I became buds. And because somebody said, "Oh, you should go talk to Joe. He knows where this is and that is." And I was looking for this, that, and the other. And so I went over, met him, called him up, went to his house, and talked about this and that. And he goes, "I got some stuff to show you." He goes in this room that had walls and walls of keys. You get, and how could you know which key to get? But he gets this one ring and goes, "Here it is." And we walk, about 10 blocks to this hill, and there's this big transformer station right in the middle of the freaking city, right? And where this alley cuts across on the back wall of this gigantic and it's just like Men in Black. And he puts the key in there, opens it up, and it's a steep concrete steps down into forever, right? And we go down and down and down and down. Down there is some pretty weird ass technology left over from the 20s up to the Manhattan. So Asheville so they had all this underground space. They didn't just bulldoze dirt into where the mountains were and put the street there. No, they put steel up, poured concrete, and during the Manhattan Project, they had weird ass shit going on down there. So this guy, he goes out and all these lights, boom, and it's the city of the 1890s of Asheville underground, but with all this weird shit all over the place. And I, Mr. Photographer, I'm taking pictures of everything. And I go back to the downtown development boys and I said, "Take a look at these pictures." And they're like, I said, "You want to have tourism? Man, if we open this shit up and turn it into like an amusement park, forget Dollywood." And so the guy, after he takes me there, we go to the hardware store and he cuts me 3 or 4 keys because none of the city guys had any of these keys or knew where any of this shit was. And so I take 2 of those guys who at least listen to me, or at least know they should be listening to me. And I take them down there and, I throw the switch and the thing lights up and it's like, oh! And they get freaked fucking out. And we got to get out. So turn it off. Give me that key. Give me that key. So I had after the old guy gave me 2 keys, I went to the hardware store and cut myself 10 keys, right? And gave them to some friends who would enjoy being down there. And so I gave him the key and he thought that was the end of the story. But it's still down there. I don't have those keys anymore. Half those people aren't in Asheville anymore because, I was one of the first people, I was one of the first guys in Soho. I was one of the first guys to really realize that Asheville was an amazing place. Because when I rolled in there, because I got this gig to build a database for the Cherokee Nation of their library that was just in boxes. And me and this woman who showed up, we did this. She was a computer girl. I was the photo guy. I was the guy who could read between the lines of what they wrote in their language. And she was Cherokee, so she read that better than me, but she couldn't construct the juxtaposition. I mean, that's one of my skill sets. So we were a great team. Plus, we kind of, I mean, she was super duper. I always find these amazing, brilliant women who basically petrify other men, so they never date or have any fun with guys. And if they're not a lesbian, they're not getting it on. And then they stumble on me, and boy, they've had years of pent up, I want to have fun. So, and I knew exactly what she was doing. I was helping her shine because I let her, I didn't want to have to juggle with who was in charge. You're in charge, baby. You're the alpha dog. I'm just your your lap dog, and I'll lap you up. You know. So, and I have had a few women tell me, so she's not having any fun with guys, so she tries out women, and she's just, not wired that way. But one time I was down there, and she was like worn out, like after 11 hours of like just, we're snuggling, and she goes, wow, you're the best lesbian I've ever experienced. So that's a good compliment. So anyway, she and I were the first guys who broke into that place and had, I mean, not just Underground or the Cherokee place, because our next gig was we went to the Biltmore House. And this moron who married into the Astor family and many generations later, they aren't part of the rich establishment. But he would, their family was left the Biltmore House and all the property and a chunk of money. And he went through it all doing stupid crap. And then the state came to him and said, listen, you owe us a couple $1 million in taxes. So we're going to set up a nonprofit entity, and, you're still going to own all the shit. We're going to monetize it. We will give you rent. We're going to fix it back to where it was. Because these guys, his family, his kids were using the Louis XIV armoire as a hockey goal, stuff like that. So we went in there. We got a few more through my little connects through the theater. I had friends who I used to make scenery for at George and George, who were really, like furniture historians. Because when you're making a set for 14th century this, or these guys and gals had it, so I brought them to be part of our crew, and we went through everything. And I photographed everything. Those guys who knew all that said what it was and did the provenance of proving what it was. And then, our queen, she would put it into the database and put it all together into the package that they wanted. She understood that part of the project. And so that got us in. So the next thing they wanted us to do was to go after all the boxes of stuff that were in the basement of the city hall. So that's when we got into the guys who were the road department and the power department and the water department and this department and that department. And we saw the story of the Great Depression and what happened and how Asheville was stuck in amber because nobody would lend them money. So they didn't build any, no shopping centers. They didn't rip apart the beautiful old stuff to build crappy, Woolworths, or Walmarts. They didn't have Walmarts, they didn't have any. And so, and you could go there and buy any really beautiful house from the 19th century for like under 10 grand. Now, if I had some money, I'd be a rich boy right now because I had the access of what and where and what's going to go on. And I went to my dad, and after our little real estate box, come on, this is one time. You're going to die soon. I'm taking care of you. That's why I'm here. No, you're not. You're here doing all this other stuff. You're never here. I said, well, I'm here when you need me and when you're in good shape. Meaning not physical, but happy. You're happy. I'm here being happy with you. When you're a jerk like you are right now, no, not so much. I said, but you can make money. And I went and showed him a bunch of these buildings. So these are terrible. These are disgusting. Yes, they were in poor shape. But the real estate itself. My father had no idea about real estate, no conscious, and he always prided himself. And he was like, a moron like Donald Trump is about real estate. Donald Trump. He's only where he is because his daddy gave him about $300 million. Anyway, go read that article in Wall Street Journal a couple weeks ago. They put it out quite well. So, and anyone who grew up in his neighborhood knew what kind of moron that guy was. And anyone who worked for him, like I did. Anyway, so that was Asheville. It was quite an amazing place. And I had my finger every little pie. Every gender, every race, every economic strata. Like the richest guys. I was in this coffee shop. I showed you Richie's coffee shop, and it was right on the square, big windows, and these two guys, I knew who they were. They were walking diagonally across the lights, there was no traffic, so they didn't have to worry about getting hit. But they were acting like we owned the place, which they thought they did. And they came in and they saw me, and they came over and they thought, because the movie Last of the Mohicans was made in Asheville. All the buildings of the forts were buildings of, that were there. They just, the Hollywood guys changed a little bit, this and that. And then they had the mountains of the Smokies as the majority of the set. Anyway, so that director of that, I forget, is Michael something. That guy, I had this face and body that if people squint, people think I am, Donald Sutherland. People think I'm like Chuck Mangione. People think, there's about 20 different, Mandela personas of me scattered across the dialogue, and people will swear I am that person. And I've stopped trying to dissuade people because they usually take me out to dinner and, try to, get in my favor. And anyway, so these rich guys come in a coffee shop and they see me and they go, Mike, how you doing? And I go, oh, okay. And so they go on and on and on. And once I pick up who they think I am, I just play straight into it the best I can. So, they're going on and on and on, and they're telling how great they are and what they're going to do for the city, and that they're really excited that I'm staying. That was 6 months ago when you did the movie. You're still here. That's great. We thought you went back to Hollywood. Oh, you're going to buy a house here? We need a guy like you, blah, 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 blah. So I'm just going, right? And my friend Richie, who's, still opening this coffee shop, he's like shaking his head like, because he knows who I am. Then this other guy walks across the street, and I know him. I work for him in New York. He's one of George and George. There's two guys, George, that they build theaters, and they renovate the inside of theaters. And I was their master electrician for 8 years. And I was the guy who would, where they wanted to mix the, Frankenstein 1890s electric with the new stuff, they bring me in to do my laying on of hands on electrical devices. And so he comes in, and before he says, "Hey Al, how you doing?" These guys go to George because they want to take the theater that is the black community's theater and turn it into their theater. And they want to steal the black community's money that they've been saving up for the last 20 years to renovate the building back to what it was as a black theater, which would have worked economically. It was one of the Chitlin Circuit venues. And so they say, "Look who's here, it's Mike so-and-so," and blah, blah, blah. And my friend George says, he's like a Richard going like this. He kind of smiles and looks at me because I'm playing these two guys who he's working for because he's designing this new theater. And so, anyway, so he plays along for a little bit, and then he goes, guys, because he looks at me, and he's got, "You going to tell him, or should I?" And I kind of go, "You." And he goes, I go, "Excuse me," and I go up to the bathroom, right? And I come around, and I'm looking around the corner with Rich from the kitchen, how this is going to go down. And so George tells these morons that, he isn't the guy who did the movie. He goes, yes, he is. He used to stay in my house. I know he's at. He goes, no, no. This guy's name is Al, and he worked for me for 8 years. He is a legend in New York City, especially in the theater world, the art world, the science, every world in New York City. This guy is it. Way more than that movie guy. That guy just made that movie. This guy, if he's coming to your town, this is the guy you want. He's the man you need on. And he gives me this amazing, glowing, telling these guys, forget anything. This guy, he will make whatever you want have happen, happen. So I come around the wall from the men's room and well, how you guys doing? And they start all laughing. And George goes, I told them who you were. And I said, oh, isn't that funny, guys? And they slapped at me and said, that's a good one. Well, this is a story we can tell. And that you really got us. And especially, it was Vincent. His name isn't Moron, but Moran. It's like something that he turned into French. And he owned Ticketron. And that's why he connected to George, because he had George. And I knew who Vincent Moran was. And I had worked on a number of his projects. And did he remember me as that guy? No. He thought I was the movie image. This is how and I constantly called him, yeah, this is Vincent Moron, And he let me do it, because in his ear, he thought I was saying his name right. And the other guy was Roger McGuire. And he was part of that ancient Scottish crew that came there. And he was his mother was his cousin, was his brother, was, it was like, yeah, it was like, ding, 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 deliverance, but with rich people. And that's worse. So that was my 9-year stint in Asheville, meaning I had total access to everything. It was the best of times. So about 7 years was, and one day I will really go into great depths of everything Asheville. I'm just giving you the cover picture. And when I showed you those photographs, that was also kind of a cover picture. But one day I'll spend, look, we're here at, 2 hours, 12 minutes, and 32 seconds. I should stop here in a moment of, synchronistic whoopee. So is there anything you guys want to talk about before we sign off? I hope I educated and entertained. I energetically, alchemically have been sweeting the pot here for you guys to go off and be the little pebble. And I know you're doing it. I can tell, even this morning where I couldn't say good morning to you guys, I got the sense of where, you were a little jonesing for Sensei Al Bob. And, and as my teacher, Akachike, would always say to me, all things are as they should be. I said, what are you talking about? All things are as they should be. Is it all going to work out? All things are as they should be. All things are as they should be. Just remember to breathe. 20%. 30% out. He said that to me the most. I had to, people who taught me how to do it weren't him, but once I ascended enough, just that little centimeter above, that's when I met him on the other side, because that's when I started. And that's one thing I want to talk to you guys about, adjusting your harmonic. A number of you there, Mike and Dragon and Buddy, you all know this. Jane knows it. You all know this. You just need, I hope you are giving each other your emails and it's like how I taught class, this group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and within each group you all have to work together and study. And I made every group make their own textbook. So, and in a lot of those universities, they're like behind the glass, class of 79 did this. Amazing. So, And, I still get mail from the schools I taught at, who at that time, when, the administrations would be like, burn him at the stake, he's not a scholastic, he's one of those scholarly guys. But I still get letters from them wanting to give, we gave you this degree, we want you to come back, and we want to really give it to you this time. I should, if I had money, I'd go. They also think I have money. They want me to like give them $1 million so they can name a library after me or something. But anyway, that's how it is. November 28th. What is it? 9th? Maybe 29th? And I have a newspaper in front of me or a screen. But I'm going to go to sleep soon. So why don't we? How did we do last night on Dreamtime? Did we all come together? I was sensing you there, but I sense you all the time. So how did you guys do? How did you sleep? How was your sleep? Anybody anything to say? And how about anybody got anything to say about their experience of last night in the guided meditation? Who their guides were, what they saw in their higher conscious, any of that kind of stuff? Any enlightened moments that you can pass on to the cadre here? No? Okay. 2 minutes, 26 and 36. Why don't we say goodnight at 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 22 seconds. Okay? Well, I love you guys so much. You're always with me. I feel you all the time. In the conversations I've had all these days with other people, your energy has always been with me. So I thank you for all of that. And I'm always here for all of you. You can get a hold of me at thedudewake42 at Gmail. There we are. I love you guys. See you tomorrow morning. I'll give you a morning ring.